So, but it's just like yours, you know, it opens and rotates and stuff. So the goal today is to be able to duplicate segments, add, subtract segments, duplicate angles, add and subtract angles. Okay, so duplicating segments is super easy. Somebody was asking me about the compass that has two pieces of metal in it instead of a piece of lead. You know, draft people use that to measure without marking up drawings. You know, they open up the width of the compass. For example, I want to see how wide AB is, you know, I'm just going to open it up and measure it. Now, with the compasses that have two little pieces of two pins instead of a pin and lead, they use those, Logan, already, put the compass down. They use those to check their work without getting lead all over, maybe blueprints that come to them, that kind of stuff. And you know, now there's a lot of technology where a lot of drawings are done with the CAD systems, but somebody has to write all the programs to make CAD work, and it's basically based off of constructions, this principle of constructions. On the smartboard, just real quick, there's going to be some inaccuracy because there's only certain, like I can't get the width, you can see it kind of clicks to be just perfectly at the end. So there'll be a little more error on the smartboard than you should be seeing on your own paper. So William, why don't you put that away? That's done. We're not doing that right now. Okay, so to copy an angle, you just line your compass up, pin on one end, lead on the other, and make an arc there. And all those steps should be shown because you're showing that you have a process, so you don't erase anything. And if you're going to copy it, usually, if I asked you to copy a segment, I should say AB, then after I get that setting, I'm going to just move my compass down to a line, and either you'll be told where to do it, or the tradition would be, if this is going to be A, then you would put a little tick mark, A prime, that's copying A, where you're starting, and then you make an arc, and you would just mark arc B prime, and you don't need to highlight anything. That sort of speaks for itself. So copying is that uninteresting and simple, okay? But it's a fundamental skill to do any problem solving. So today is really, really basic. If I wanted to copy, you know, AB, and then I copy CD, if I did that, this is also one thing that you might be asked is to do a sum or a difference. So like adding segments. So this is saying add segments, the segment AB, so double it, and then subtract CD. All right, so actually before I should have done that, I should have kept my AB width. If I wanted to, a little tick mark, I'm going to move down. So B prime is right there. Does that make sense? So if I want to do problem 1, 2AB, let me shut that, subtract CD. While you're adding, you go to the right. So I'm going to do AB again. So now I wouldn't be labeling with tick marks because it gets confusing. So when we finish the problem, I'll show you how to mark your final answer. A highlighter is a good place in this case. And then I'm going to have to subtract CD. So I'm going to go back up to C and get the width of D. And again, you can see there's a little bit of error on the smartboard. And then bring my compass to where I left off. And I'm going to go to the left. So 2AB is in green. Now I'm subtracting out CD. So this would have been my CD here. Right? So when I take that off, for example, this is CD. So when I take that off, my final answer is what's left. Does that make sense? Yeah.
How do you rotate those left?
Yeah. And so in that case, you could just do a little bracket. What you don't want to do is put brackets all along the way because it's really hard to read. So your final answer is 2AB minus CD. And highlighting can help, but don't go crazy with highlighting. Some people get overexcited about highlighting and then they can't read anything because everything's sort of highlighted. So super straightforward, guys. Make sense? Okay, angles take a little bit more thought. So duplicating angles. This is where your accuracy, let me grab a compass, is affected by how big you make your arcs. So sometimes people have a tendency to, when you copy an angle, you have to make arcs, and sometimes people have a tendency to make these tiny little arcs. You want to open your compass up as wide as you can when you do these constructions, within reason, to get an accurate measure. Just like when you're measuring something small, you know, if you measure like a paper clip, there's going to be a little more error if you measured that in centimeters than if you measured the length of your table in centimeters, because relative to a centimeter, a paper clip's so small. So the more distance you open up your compass, the more accurate measurement's going to be. Okay, and so when you get graded on accuracy, you want to think about that. So here you're going to duplicate an angle. The way you do that is, if I duplicate angle A, I'm going to start it here. So my A prime is going to be the vertex of my new angle, because A is the vertex of the first angle. Does that make sense? So then I just take my compass and I pick it up and put it, basically, I'm going to put, whatever I put my compass on point A, whatever I do there, I'm going to duplicate that whole action when I get to A prime. So I'm just going to make an arc. And so like I said, I like to make it as big as I can. So that's pretty close to the edge of my workspace. So I make an arc. And then I take the exact same setting. And since I started at A, I'm going to start at A prime now. And I haven't changed the width of my compass. I'm just moving it around. And I'm going to check my work. I should end up with an obtuse angle if I've done this right. So I'm going to make a wide angle there. Okay, so this big arc. So I have the same arc there. Okay, so the way you copy an angle is you see how wide the opening is. So the whole point of constructions is every time you make an arc, you use the arc. So I made that red arc. Now I have to use the red arc. I'm going to measure how wide it is and try to get it so I see how wide it is there. Do you see that? Then make another arc to make sure you've got the right width. So this point out here is kind of like point X. So I could say this was like X prime, right? Because I have to figure out where to put my compass. So I'm going to go to X prime, and then I'm going to make a new arc. So let me bring this down here. And then I like to switch colors because I think you guys can see what's going on better. So now I should be creating that same obtuse angle, because that point of intersection that I made, like if this were Y, this would be my Y prime. Okay? Yeah, and this is the basics of drafting. You know, I mean, this is what, draftsmen do. This is what the old engineers used to do. Now this is what draftsmen do. But electronically, but they still do a lot by hand, but primarily electronically too. So then you would pick up a straight edge. So I would then normally bring in my straight edge, but I'm going to tell you that Smartboard gets a little bonky when I bring in too many animations. So I'm just going to use the straight tool. And you would use a ruler, and that would be my angle. Okay. So now to add angles, if I were going to add angles, I would pick up where I left off. So I left off at Y prime. I wanted to add another angle. If I wanted to add angle B, I would pick up where I left off. So if I want to add angle A and B, angle A plus angle B, I'm actually not going to use this line since I'm going to just use over here. I could either, so I can add it to this side or I can add it to this side, wherever there's room in my workspace. So when you get to the problem solving with constructions, it's just like those draws that we had in chapter 1. You do want to kind of sketch out your plan as these get more complicated. But to add angle to B to angle A, I would just have to copy angle B. So I would go up here. They're going to have the same vertex, so that's where writing B prime isn't going to be useful anymore. I was using those tick marks to help you kind of see what I was doing. So to copy angle B, I just do the same thing. I want to make a nice big arc so I have less error. And then I'm going to copy it adjacent to angle A. So really, actually, an even smarter idea is if I use that same red arc. So let me do that instead. Just to show you, sometimes it's easier to simplify your work. Like, does that look like it's about the same? Ah. See how that's the same? So the reason is you have so much less to look at. So I'm going to use that same size arc because now I can just extend that red arc a little farther. And now I'm going to measure the width of B. So it's a little slight error again. That SmartBoard just isn't going to allow me to get quite on that. So I'm going to put my pin here. Do you see why I'm putting it there? It's like if this were Z, this would be now Z prime. And I have to figure out like this where W is. So I just figured out that width. So now I'm going to mark it off. And so the addition of those two angles almost makes a straight angle. And then how would you mark that? That's a little bit harder, but that's where a highlighter's kind of handy. You know, you could say with a highlighter, and then just say this is angle A plus angle B. And then if I wanted to subtract angle B, instead of going down, I would have gone up. And then I would have had a smaller angle. I would have gone in angle A. Does that make sense? And then I would have, you know, now I'm not doing it just to save a little bit of time, but this would be like angle A minus angle B. Okay? Let's get rid of that. Okay, last thing, copying a triangle. So, make your own triangle. So, whenever they tell you to draw a triangle, try to make sure it's not symmetrical. And then to copy a triangle, start with a line. And then basically you copy the segments. Get my compass over here. So you have to copy the length of the segment. So if I want to figure out I might need a smaller triangle. I don't think the compass is gonna open that wide. How long the segment is. You're gonna see on this, there'll be more error because of the thickness of the polygon line that the smartboard has there. It's a little thick. So I'm gonna copy that segment. And then mark it off. So this is going to be A and A prime. So this will be B prime. And this is B. Does that make sense? To get C, I need to copy the angle. So I'm going to put my compass on A, make an arc, and put my compass on A prime and make the same size arc. Now I have to figure out how wide it is. So I'm going to bring my compass back here and see if I can get the opening. Let's do that. Figure out the width. And I got lucky that it is the exact same. That doesn't always happen. So I'm going to use this now to mark off. That's one problem you won't have. The arc's moving. I'm trying to do this without, I guess I'll just draw the whole arc, which is not a problem. That's not what I wanted to do. There we go. You see what you get that? That's C prime right here. C prime. Because that was if this were X, I just made, oh, X prime, sorry. I think that's what you're, now I have to, it's how wide the angle is. Now I have to draw a straight line and mark off the length. Does that make sense? So I'm going to pick up my tool, and I don't know how long it is, I just know it goes through here. It was the length of C. It would be fine. And then it would skip a step. So then, there we go. So sometimes sometimes I will do that, and sometimes I just don't think to do that. It's kind of just, let's see, red. So that's how wide C is. Do you see that, the length? So I'm going to come over here to A and mark off the length. And then I'm not going to let me do it. I'll get rid of the little X on there. And that's going to be C prime. So that's a good suggestion, Kira. And I would say the only reason I didn't do that is sometimes your compass isn't long enough. And so I don't want you to see that as a necessary step, because your side might be too long for that. So my habit is not to show that in teaching, because it doesn't always work. And then you're like, well, what do you do if I don't have the length? So then you just take your straight edge and you complete your triangle. And that's duplicated. Okay? You don't need to, because it's labeled ABC. And you don't erase any marks. That's the whole